Friends, it's good to have you on the podcast. You're used to listening to a conversation between an amazing leader and myself. And on this occasion, I just have some things to say. Some things to say about why we do what we do and what we do. So I hope you'll enjoy this. Listen up. It certainly excited me. This is the Arable Leader podcast. I'm Karl Martin, and we're exploring true, brave, kind, curious leadership, leading from your soul. Hey friends, leadership is having a moment, which I guess is a conversation and a statement that you could have in almost any season, but particularly in a time when almost 50% of the world are going to the polls to choose who they're going to follow and who they don't want to follow. Leadership is having a moment. And the general consensus of this moment is that leadership is broken. In almost every arena of culture, whether it's business or politics or entertainment or the family or the church, leadership is broken. It's way too easy for us to point the finger at individuals and say that person's a moral failure, that person did something wrong, that person had the wrong strategy. It's far more difficult for us to point the fingers back at ourselves. But we just might be the problem. The French conservative thinker Joseph de Maistre once said that a nation gets the government it deserves. He might as well have been saying that a nation gets the leader or leaders that it deserves. You see, we have much more agency and are much more culpable for the leaders that are leading us than we like to acknowledge or even appropriate in our thinking. The problem is systemic. Leadership is having a moment, and that moment isn't that good. For what it's worth, I think we make two foundational mistakes when it comes to leadership. Firstly, we don't teach it. We kind of assume somehow along the track we're going to catch leadership or someone else is going to, and therefore our leadership is way more accidental than it is intentional. Guys, from my perspective, leadership is the greatest of human skills. The ability to influence yourself, the ability to influence others, the ability to move people to action and change things is foundational for what it means to be human. And we don't teach it. It should be universal curriculum for every one of our children. I don't think you should be able to graduate university until you've done a general education in leadership, until you've learnt to lead yourself by knowing yourself, until you've learnt to lead others by knowing them. Leadership isn't taught. The second mistake we make is that when and if we do teach leadership, we teach leadership skill sets, not leadership mindsets or even heart sets. We teach competencies, we don't teach character. Now don't hear what I'm not saying. Leadership competencies are absolutely fundamental and important. People need to know how to read spreadsheets. They need to know how to sell a product. They need to know about profit and loss. They need to know about the governance of their business. But if you just teach people skill sets without teaching people mindsets, if you teach people competencies without character, you're buying yourself a little piece of hell because you can't make those things stickable, and these things can very easily be corruptible. We have to teach character. It's the combination of competencies and character that makes for the kind of leaders that you want to follow and the kind of leader that you would desire to become. Let me take you to London, to the capital city of my home. And let me take you to a place in your mind called Westminster Abbey. You've probably seen it on your television at the coronation of kings, at the wedding of princes. And in the north transept of Westminster Abbey, there is a memorial to one of my heroes. His name was William Wilberforce. William Wilberforce was the great abolitionist who for over half a century sat in Parliament, 6 parliaments he sat in, and he advocated for the abolition of slavery throughout the whole of that time. The memorial to his life in the north transept of Westminster Abbey says this: "In an age and country fertile in good and great men, He was foremost amongst those who fixed the character of their times. And he goes on to talk about his character and how his character fixed character. I want you to fixate on two words, that word fix and that word character. And I want you to understand that they have deeper meanings than the meanings that you automatically attribute to them. The word fixed back in the day, in the late 18th and early 19th century, it didn't just mean the supergluing of a cup handle to a cup where it had been broken. It didn't just mean the WD-40ing of a gate that was squeaky. It meant the setting, the fixing, the irrevocable setting of direction of a culture, the fixing. And that word character comes from the ancient Greek, meaning an iron stamping or etching tool. And so what we're being told is that Wilberforce and people like Wilberforce set a pattern in society, carved a moral etching in the culture, an etching of the soul. Of course, in the late 18th and early 19th century, there was a culture that needed fixing. Society was growing and increasing at a rapid rate. Ideas were changing almost overnight. There were wars, there were rumors of wars, famine and diseases. The culture needed shifting and the culture needed changing and fixing. And you could argue equally the culture that we live in. Social commentators today describe our culture as a VUCA culture, a volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous culture. Terms that were first used to describe the situation and the context of the world after the Cold War by the US military, and now applied to almost every arena of our culture. Volatile, upside down, uncertain, chaotic, complex, ambiguous, and anxious. It's a world that needs fixing, right? And the hope is still leadership, but leadership of a different kind. The solve is a better conversation about that kind of leadership. The secret, I believe, is character. And that might just be the most long-winded way of introducing why we started Arable, why I wrote the book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire, and why we've bothered with a podcast. Because we've taken those concepts and we've developed a system that we almost pretentiously call an anti-system. A system of qualities that we want to put into the water and into the ether, which we believe will be a solve for the leadership malaise. Qualities of true, brave, kind, and curious. We want to champion a different conversation around these things and begin to attach skill sets to mindsets, competencies to character, which we believe will change the culture. True is all about integrity. It's all about authenticity. It's the inward journey. It's a journey of digging and discovering, who am I really? What does it feel like to be the other side of me? How am I able to take down my masks? Where do my responses and reactions come from? When you encounter me, what are you encountering? It's a journey of mirrors and microscopes. How can I show you what you really look like? And is this who you truly are? How can I dig further and investigate further where those things came from, where my influences came from, where how my injuries have affected the way in which I show up, how my ideologies need to be investigated and worked out whether I truly believe these things and the extent to which I do. Brave is the courageous conversation. It's the onward journey. It's a journey into purpose and meaning and focus. It's working out, what is the point of me? Why do I exist? What is my unique contribution in this world? It's a journey towards a unanimous yes, which can then be defended by 1,000 no's. It's a journey towards focus. If this is my yes, I will try and do this, and I will try not to do these things. kind is oftentimes seen to be the weakest of these leadership words, the weakest of these leadership concepts. And yet at Arable, we kind of believe it's the strongest. It's the understanding that there really is no such thing as an individual. There is just team. Everyone is connected and contingent in a variety of ways. And how then we play that throughout our leadership life. How do I prefer the other? How do I bring out the best skills and abilities in other people in my team? How can I read a room with empathy so that I can understand how to motivate and inspire and incentivize others to action? How can I bring about change that will enable me to be a change agent and my organization not to become change averse? Curious. Curious is every day is a school day. I can learn from everything. Every experience that remains unprocessed stays unlearned. Curiosity is a wondrous approach to life, a deep and careful and skillful questioning of situations and of persons which enable us all to flourish and the sea level to rise. Curiosity is clearly the catalytic quality in this model. True, brave, kind, and curious. If you have these qualities, you have soul. If you have these qualities and grow in these qualities, you're grounded and centered, and you're the kind of leader that others want to follow, the kind of leader that you can attach skill sets to all over the place, the kind of leader who changes organizations. I have 2 assertions that I want to leave you with. Assertion number 1, these leadership qualities are fractal. By fractal, I mean the big is evident in the small and the small is evident in the big. In other words, if I can grow a great person, I can grow great leaders. If I grow great leaders, I grow great teams. If I grow great teams, we grow great organizations. If we have great organizations, we have great culture, we have great society. It's true upwards and it's true downwards. Now, I want to say something that might sound political, and it isn't. But the character, the moral character of the people that we vote for matters. It truly matters because of the fractal nature of leadership. What you celebrate, you propagate. What you tolerate, you perpetuate. And so if you want the kind of society that has low moral character, you appoint leaders of low moral character. If you want a society that flourishes, where people are blessed and encouraged, if you want a society of health and growth, you elect leaders with health and growth at the very heart of who they are. You elect leaders of soul. Think carefully. My second assertion is this. Leadership qualities leak. Your soul will leak. It's an inevitable fact in a culture which is fast-moving and noisy, where urgent comes at you and screams, where you have to solve problems and answer questions again and again and again. Your qualities, your true, brave, kind, and curious will leak and will become slaves to the urgent that's right in front of you, which is why I wrote the book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire, as an attempt to help people with patterns of behavior, ways of rediscovering and reforming and recalibrating around soul on a daily basis. The cave is your setting space. It's the first thing in the morning space. It's the way to get ahead of the day and say, this is who I am, and this is what I'm for, and this is how I'm going to show up. The road is the arresting space. It's the moment in the middle of the day where you get to turn off the noise of the day and reset around your original set in the cave. It's the moment when you say no to things that are coming at you and yes to things that are in you. The table is your social space. It's a space to make sure that your leadership is not an echo chamber. It's the space to test your ideas and your principles and your decisions. It's the space for relationship. It's the space to remember that everything ultimately is relational. And the fire is your processing space. It's your reflection space. It's the moment when you wrap up the day and bundle it up and leave behind the things that you need to leave behind and take with you the things that you need to take with you. Every experience that remains unprocessed stays unlearned. Arable is set on changing the leadership conversation, changing the leadership culture. Your growth is a subset of your health, not the other way around. Leadership is a person before it is ever a process or a program, and you are the project. You are the project. Allow me to read to you from the book I wrote, just some thoughts. This is about unearthing who you really are, unlocking the very deepest part of you. This is about unveiling what I like to call soul. So the project is you. Draw a circle on the ground. Don't stop listening just because it got practical. Do it. Draw. If you happen to be on a beach, do it in the sand. If you're on the patio, do it with a chalk stone. If, as likely you are neither, draw your circle with your finger. Just imagine the circle on the floor in front of you. Now step inside it and own everything within the circle. What I'm asking is, before you address anything outside the boundary, will you take responsibility for all that's inside of it? Will you address all that is in yourself? All dreams, all fears, all possibilities, all limitations, all wounds, all merits, all gifts, all. The project is leading yourself so that you can lead others. And then groups of others who lead others. It requires a digging. It will be challenging in every good way, and then worth every effort you make. This is, after all, about leadership, the greatest skill you could ever develop. The ability to influence, inspire, and transform, to grow people, manage systems, and organize structures. For some listening to this, it will sound like an overstatement. But my experience tells me leadership is all. It's everything. Everything you know to grow something, everything you need to inspire someone, change someplace. Show me a great team, and I'll show you great leadership. Whether that team is a national government, a business, a charity, a sports franchise, or a family, the success or failure of that team is largely dependent on the quality of its leadership, the quality of its leader. Show me chaos, infighting, underperformance, a victim or blame culture, and I'll show you a failure of leadership, of a leader. You are the project. Is the truth that whispers and then screams, refusing to allow us to shake our heads, wring our hands, justify our position, or blame someone else. No, stay in the circle, and a different kind of leader might emerge. Friends, if that made sense to you, I would love to invite you to be part of the conversation. You can do that by buying the book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire. You can do that by listening into more podcasts. You can do that by looking us up on our website, arableco.com, and engaging with some of the programs that we offer.
You've been watching The Arable Leader with Karl Martin. Subscribe for more episodes with great leaders. And you can also listen to The Arable Leader wherever you get your podcasts. For more resources for leading in a healthy way, visit arableco.com and check out Karl's new book, The Cave, the Road, the Table, and the Fire.